Lee Murray, described as one of the most intimidating men to ever fight for the UFC, resuscitated 4 times when he survived a near fatal stabbing. Then 5 months later, he takes part in the UK's biggest robbery, the £53 million Securitas in Kent. So before Lee became a big star in the MMA world, I was at a couple of his fights, his very early fights, around about the start of the century, about the year 2000, and they were in Hemel Hempstead or Bracknell or around those areas, but they were very small shows because MMA was just picking up, and I'd got into MMA from UFC 1, and Milton Keynes had a pioneer of MMA called Lee Hasdall, and Lee Hasdall was one of the very first people to bring shoot fighting Vale Tudo across to the UK, and he was from Milton Keynes. So Milton Keynes had some of the very first ever shoot fighting and Vale Tudo fights involving Lee Hasdall. Lee Hasdall was a well-known doorman in Milton Keynes, and used to spar with our very own Norman Buckland, my good friend, and used to do the door with Norman as well. So I was in the clubs drinking, and Lee Hasdall would be on the door in the clubs. But anyway, getting back to Lee Murray. So I was at a couple of Lee's very early MMA fights. We have a mutual friend actually who said that Lee was at some of my early fights as well, because he liked the boxing side of it as well. So Lee Murray worked his way up in these small shows and started to get a big name for himself. He ended up fighting in the UFC against Jorge Rivera, winning that in the first round with I think it was a triangle choke. So after that big win, people were tipping him to be a contender for the UFC Middleweight title, and they were thinking big things were coming for him. He got into a road rage incident where someone rammed his car. He had his daughter in the car. Someone rammed his car, smashed the windows. So he jumped out, punched the bloke, tried to take the keys out of the car, punched the bloke, broke his eye socket, and punched him again, injured the bloke. So his visa to America was taken away, so he couldn't go back to UFC, because UFC at that time was only in America. So it sort of put a stop to that dream of the UFC title. He carried on over in Britain. I think he went with Cage Rage or Cage Warriors, and he got to fight Anderson Silva. This is when Anderson Silva was on the way up. Obviously Anderson Silva would go on to become widely regarded as one of the best MMA fighters of all time. And Lee put up a good fight in that as well. He lost the fight, but he put up a good fight. He took a kick in the first round and survived the kick in the first round, and yeah, carried on to lose on points. So it shows the calibre that Lee was. And he was known for his striking, his punching, kicking, but he could win by submission as well. He trained out of London Shoot Fighters for his MMA, and he also trained in Canning Town's Peacock Gym for the boxing training. And he actually sparred with Julius Francis and James Zikic, 2 pros, for his boxing training for a couple of the fights, I think. So he was mixing with professional boxers as well as the professional MMA fighters. And he was a good striker, very fast-handed, very quick, only weighing 180, 190 pounds, and being 6'1", I think he was, 6'1", 6'2" maybe. But he was very wiry, very strong, very fast. Another incident that Lee's very well known for is his street fight with Tito Ortiz, which happened outside China White's after UFC 38, where Ian Freeman beat Frank Mir, which was a good victory for Ian Freeman. But the fight happened outside China White's, and it was witnessed by UFC fighters Pat Miletich and Matt Hughes. Both saw that. So it's all verified what happened there. And I think Tito attacked Lee. Lee put him on the floor with a very fast cluster of punches and sparked him out, and then I think or got him on the floor and then kicked him in the head. Knocked out Tito. And they were meant to fight later on. There was a big, obviously a big grudge match over this. So even though Tito was a bigger man, Tito was light heavyweight champ, Lee was middleweight champ. But there was talk of them fighting, I think, back then. I remember, I think Lee challenged Tito from the octagon, or from one of his fights. Tito was there, and I think he challenged him. So the fight that nearly killed Lee was at a party for Lauren Pope at Funky Buddha's, and Lee was stabbed numerous times. He had a punctured lung, severed an artery as well, and he was resuscitated apparently 4 times on the operating table. So he was that close to death. Very lucky to survive that. Only 5 months after that was when he participated in the UK's biggest robbery, the Securitas job in Kent. £53 million was stolen when Lee and a gang of men turned up with handguns, shotguns, assault rifles, and took 53 million. Lee then went across to Morocco, where his family are from, and tried to hide away in Morocco. Got caught in a shopping mall. He'd been over there for a while, so he built himself a big house over there, big mansion, and with some of the money, and he was living over there. But then got caught. Initially sentenced to 10 years. Sentence was then increased in 2010, later on in the year, was increased to 25 years, which means he'll be due for release in 2035. And I know that he said when he gets out, he wants to carry on fighting, although he's going to be getting on then. He wants to carry on fighting or training fighters or be involved in MMA in some way. So once again, I never encourage or glorify crime or violence. Once again, it's a warning. Lee's now doing 25 years for robbery, and he's lucky to survive that knife attack, which highlights the dangers of it all. But I'm just putting the facts out of Lee Murray's career and how he ended up, as a lot of people have asked me in the comments to talk about Lee Murray. And yeah, I do remember those early fights, and I remember thinking he was good then. But now look, he's doing 25 years. I just wanted to say a big thank you to all my subscribers. It means the world to me, all the likes, all the comments, all the shares, and it's great to keep in touch with you all. And I'm grateful for the support of the channel. And I'm really pleased with the last few videos. Thank you to all my new subscribers as well. Really grateful. It's really rising quickly now that I've got back on track. And yeah, big thank you to everyone, and I'll catch up with you all soon.